Okay, so let's start with environment variables. Environment variables normally are used as a public variable which are used among the application. So for example, I want a public variable for API URL. So this API URL which will be prefixed for every route which I use for my application or for my API. So as we saw before that every API we had, it's prefixed with something like /API/version1. And this it means that every API in my application will have this URL and then API version1, and then I say, for example, products. And then I can post, delete, or create some data to this API. So now let's see how we can read this prefix. So I don't want to repeat in my APIs always this string. So I can fix it in some constant which is readable from everywhere, and then I can pass it to my strings routes, and then it will be readable in that route. So to do that, first normally in Node.js, normally we have an environment variable called .env or environment file, and for example I pass a variable name which I want. It's any name you can have it. For example, API URL, and then I can say the string which I want to pass, which is API/v1, and in this case I will have this API URL is defined everywhere in the application. But first, how we can read this variable from this file in our application? There is a library, we can install it from npm packages, and it's called .env. So we can say npm install .env. And this library normally is available always, and we can use it in the application JS, in the root, no problem. So we can say define, or we can say require this library. So .env /config, and normally this should be in a string. So when I say require this library, then I will be able to use some specific constant to get these values from the env file. So I will go here and define a constant. Let's call it, for example, API, and then we can say process.env. Then the name of the variable which I created here. So I can say API_URL. So let's save everything. And now let's try to print this variable to see if it's really reading from this file or not. So let's do it on when we start the server. So I will say console.log the API constant. So then I will start my server, npm start, and here it is. We have it now defined already. So in every route I can define or pass this API variable plus the route which I want. For example, products. So in this case, I will have the prefixed API version1 plus products. We will see that more in detail in the next lectures to see how to create the route and how to build it and how to call it. The most important thing you need to know now that we can create a public variables in this file and read them anywhere in the application. So in this case, I want to store, for example, the database string or connection string. I can store it here in this file. And also, for example, some secret for authentication, I can also store it here. And when I want to deploy the application to the production server, I'm going to change these variables. So we will have also another file, for example, .env, but for production server. We will see that, of course, in the lecture where we will deploy the Node.js application. So now let's move to the next lecture where we will create the real API and how we will send JSON data through it, because we need JSON data for our eShop to exchange with the front end the information about the products and the order and etc.